Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. And here we are back home, back at Wisteria College. Well, Wisteria Cottage, but we call it Wisteria College because there's a lot of high-end education going on over here because we're reading the Bhagavatam. This is where we started to do our live reading. Not the reading, I was reading for years, but I was first convinced that we should actually start the live readings here in Wisteria College. So I'm so happy to be back with Priyakram Prabhu, who takes care of us like nobody has ever done. Shamagori, his better half, who's probably the best cook in the world. No offense to anybody out there who's cooked for me before. Don't worry, but she's special. And we have Bhakta Said here, who's also a mad scientist, inventor, come pure devotee, along with Radharaman, our old-time companion and friend, sidekick, and Abhay Das Brahmachari, the most recent initiate on the block. And that's our audience today in the live studios here in Hode Farm, halfway between, well, in between Folkestone and Canterbury, in a very lovely setting. Of course, it's a little rainy and cold, unusually so, but we welcome all of you back, and we hope you're all fine and healthy and happy. And my voice is a little different because of different things, jet lag and traveling and all of that. But very happy to be back here and be happy to be back with you. So without further ado, we're going to recite the prayer that we've recited every day for how many days? 300, 400, 500 days straight. We should be getting it by now. To help us go deeper into the Bhagavatam, Sanatana Goswami has compiled a prayer praising the Srimad-Bhagavatam. It's called Srimad-Bhagavata Mahimastam. It's from the Sri Krishna Lila Stava, verses 412 to 416, just in case you want to look it up in the library. And he says this, Sarva Shastra Dipi Yusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya, Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidvandoditaditya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshak Shadayate, Sarvada Sarvasevyaya, Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Mat Sangin, Mad Guru Man Mahadana, Man Nistadaka Mad Bhavya, Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy. I bow down to you. Asadu, sadhuta dayin, adini chochata kara, hanamun chagadachin mam, prem narit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Okay. I need some prayer and blessings and support from everybody so that my voice holds up for this reading. It's a little bit off today. Okay. We've reached the 55th chapter of the 10th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam. It's entitled The History of Pradyumna. This is the first chapter after Lord Krishna marries Rukmini. And Pradyumna happens to be the first son of Rukmini. Okay. This chapter tells how Pradyumna was born as the son of Lord Krishna and then kidnapped by the demon Shambhara. It also describes how Pradyumna killed Shambhara and returned home with his wife. Kamadev, Cupid, is an expansion of Lord Vasudeva. Kamadev, Cupid, an expansion of Lord Vasudeva, had been burned to ashes by Lord Shiva's anger and was reborn as part and parcel of Pradyumna from the womb of Rukmini. A demon named Shambhara, thinking Pradyumna his enemy, kidnapped him from the maternity room even before he was 10 days old. Shambhara threw Pradyumna into the ocean and returned to his kingdom. Shambhara threw Pradyumna, a powerful fish swallowed Pradyumna and was caught by fishermen in a net. They presented the huge fish to Shambhara, and when his cooks cut it open, they found a child within its belly. That's a pretty big fish. The cooks gave the infant to the maidservant Mayavati, who was astonished to see him. Just then, Narada Muni appeared. Narada Muni always appears just at exactly the right moment to tell everything about it to everyone. Just then, Narada Muni appeared and told her who the infant was. Mayavati was actually Kamadeva's wife, Rati Devi. While waiting for her husband to be reborn in a new body, she had taken employment as a cook in the household of Shambhara. Now that she understood who the infant was, she began to feel intense affection for him. After a very short time, Pradyumna grew to youthful maturity, entrancing all the women with his beauty. Once Rati Devi approached Pradyumna and playfully moved her eyebrows in a conjugal mood. Addressing her as his mother, Pradyumna commented that she was putting aside her proper maternal mood and behaving like a passionate girlfriend. Rati then told Pradyumna who they both were. She advised him to kill Shambhara and to help him, she instructed him in the mystic mantras known as Maya. Pradyumna went to Shambhara and after angering him with various insults, challenged him to a fight, upon which Shambhara angrily took up his club and marched outside. The demon tried various magic spells against Pradyumna, but Pradyumna fended off all of them with the Mahamaya mantras and then beheaded Shambhara with his sword. At that moment, Rati Devi appeared in the sky and took Pradyumna away to Dwarka. When Pradyumna and his wife entered the inner chambers of Lord Krishna's palace, many there thought he was Krishna himself. So much did the appearance and dress resemble the Lord's. Out of shyness, the ladies ran here and there to hide themselves, but after a little while, they noticed small differences in Pradyumna's and Krishna's appearances. And once they understood that he was not Lord Krishna, they gathered around him. When Rukmini saw Pradyumna, she was overwhelmed with motherly love, and milk began to flow spontaneously from her breasts. Noting that Pradyumna looked exactly like Krishna, she became eager to find out who he was. She remembered one of her sons had been abducted from the maternity room. If he were still alive, she thought, he would be the same age as Pradyumna, standing before me. While Rukmini reflected in this way, Lord Krishna arrived in the company of Devaki and Vasudeva. Although the Lord understood the situation perfectly well, he remained silent. Then Narada Muni arrived. It's like a spaceman, newsman or something, and explained everything. Everyone was amazed to hear the account and embraced Pradyumna in great ecstasy. Because Pradyumna's beauty so closely resembled Krishna's, the ladies in a maternal relationship with Pradyumna could not help thinking of him as their conjugal lover. He was, after all, the exact reflection of Sri Krishna, and therefore it was natural for them to see him in this way. That's a summary of the chapter. Now we'll start the verses. Text 1. Shukadeva Goswami said, Kamadev, Cupid, an expansion of Vasudeva, had previously been burned to ashes by Rudra's anger. Now, to obtain a new body, he merged back into the body of Lord Vasudeva. Purport. In his Krishna Sandarbha, Anucheda 87, Srila Jiva Goswami cites the following verse of the Gopal Tapani Upanishad 240 to prove that the Pradyumna, who is the son of Krishna and Rukmini, is the same Pradyumna who is a member of Lord Krishna's eternal fourfold plenary expansion, the Chaturvyuha. Yatra sao sangstita Krishnas tribi shaktya samahitaha Ramaniruddha Pradyumnai Rukminya Sahito Vibhuhu. There, in Dwarka, the mighty Lord Krishna resides in the company of his three plenary expansions, Balarama, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna, and his potency, Rukmini. The Krishna Sandarbha goes on to explain, with reference to the present verse of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, that the Cupid whom Rudra burned up with his anger is a demigod subordinate to Indra. This demigod Cupid is a partial manifestation of the prototype Cupid, Pradyumna, who is a plenary expansion of Vasudeva. The demigod Cupid, being unable to attain a new body on his own, entered within the body of Pradyumna. Otherwise, Cupid would have had to remain in a perpetual state of disembodiment, a result of Rudra's having incinerated him with his anger. In his English rendering of the Srimad-Bhagavatam 1.4.30, purport, Srila Prabhupada confirms the absolute status of Pradyumna, Lord Krishna's first son. Pradyumna and Aniruddha are also expansions of the personality of Godhead, and thus they are also Vishnu Tattva. At Dwarka, Lord Vasudeva is engaged in his transcendental pastimes along with his plenary expansions, namely Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, and therefore each and every one of them can be addressed as the personality of Godhead. End quote. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, Pradyumna took birth from the womb of Rukmini before Sri Krishna's marriage to Jambavati, and the Lord's other marriages took place. Subsequently, Pradyumna returned from Shambhara's palace. But before Shukadeva Goswami tells of Krishna's pastimes with his other wives, he will narrate the entire story of Pradyumna for the sake of continuity. Srila Sridhar Swami further notes that Kamadev, or Cupid, now appearing within Pradyumna, is a portion of Vasudeva, because he is manifest from the element Chitta, consciousness, which is presided over by Vasudeva, and also because he, Cupid, is the cause of material generation. As the Lord states in the Bhagavad Gita 10:28, Prajanash chasmi kandarpa, of progenitors I am Kandarpa, Cupid. Very informative purport. We can go back over that if you want, but very informative. Text 2. He took birth from the womb of Vaidarbhi by the seed of Lord Krishna and received the name Pradyumna. In no respect was he inferior to his father. Text 3. The demon Shambhara, who could assume any form he desired, kidnapped the infant before he was even 10 days old. Understanding Pradyumna to be his enemy, Shambhara threw him into the sea and then returned home. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti points out that according to the Vishnu Purana, Pradyumna was kidnapped on the 6th day after his birth. Text 4. A powerful fish swallowed Pradyumna. And this fish, along with others, was caught in a huge net and seized by fishermen. Text 5. The fishermen presented that extraordinary fish to Shambhara, who had his cooks bring it to the kitchen, where they began cutting it up with a butcher knife. 6. Seeing a male child in the belly of the fish, the cooks gave the infant to Mayavati, who was astonished. Narada Muni then appeared and explained to her everything about the child's birth and his entering the fish's abdomen. 7 and 8. Mayavati was in fact Cupid's renowned wife, Rati. While waiting for her husband to obtain a new body, his previous one having been burnt up, she had been assigned by Shambhara to prepare vegetables and rice. Mayavati understood that this infant was actually Kamadev, and thus she began to feel love for him. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti explains this story as follows. When Cupid's body was burned to ashes, Rati worshipped Lord Shiva to obtain another body for Cupid. Shambhara, having also come to Shiva for a benediction, was recognized by the Lord first, who told him, "You should now ask for your benediction." Shambhara, struck with lust at seeing Rati, replied that he wanted her as his benediction, and Shiva complied. Oh, that's how she got to Shambhara. Lord Shiva then consoled the sobbing Rati, telling her, "Go with him, and in his very home you will attain what you desire." Narada. Thereupon, Rati bewildered Shambhara with her deluding power, and taking the name Mayavati, remained in his house untouched. Text 9. After a short time, this son of Krishna, Pradyumna, attained his full youth. He enchanted all women who gazed upon him. Text 10. My dear king, with a bashful smile and raised eyebrows, Mayavati exhibited various gestures of conjugal attraction as she lovingly approached her husband, whose eyes were broad like the petals of a lotus, whose arms were very long, and who was the most beautiful of men. Purport. Mayavati exhibited her conjugal attraction for Pradyumna even before revealing their true identities. Naturally, this caused some confusion at first, as described in the following verse, text 11. Lord Pradyumna told her, "O mother, your attitude has changed. You are overstepping the proper feelings of a mother and behaving like a lover." Text 12. Rati said, "You are the son of Lord Narayana and were kidnapped from your parents' home by Shambhara. I, Rati, am your legitimate wife, O master, because you are Cupid." Text 13. That demon Shambhara threw you into the sea when you were not even 10 days old, and a fish swallowed you. Then, in this very place, we recovered you from the fish's abdomen, O master. 14. Now kill this dreadful Shambhara, your formidable enemy. Although he knows hundreds of magic spells, you can defeat him with bewildering magic and other techniques. 15. Your poor mother, having lost her son, cries for you like a kurari bird. She is overwhelmed with love for her child, just like a cow that has lost its calf. 16. Shukadeva Goswami continued, speaking thus, Mayavati gave to the great soul Pradyumna the mystic knowledge called Mahamaya, which vanquishes all other deluding spells. Text 17. Pradyumna approached Shambhara and called him to battle, hurling intolerable insults at him to foment a conflict. 18. Offended by these harsh words, Shambhara became as agitated as a kicked snake. He came out, club in hand, his eyes red with rage. 19. Shambhara whirled his club swiftly about and then hurled it at the wise Pradyumna, producing a sound as sharp as a thunder crack. 20. As Shambhara's club came flying toward him, Lord Pradyumna knocked it away with his own. Then, O king, Pradyumna angrily threw his club at the enemy. 21. Resorting to the black magic of the Daityas, taught to him by Mayadanava, Shambhara suddenly appeared in the sky and released a downpour of weapons upon Krishna's son. 22. Harassed by this rain of weapons, Lord Rukmineya, oh, that's a nice name. Lord Rukmineya, the greatly powerful warrior, made use of the mystic science called Mahamaya, which was created from the emotive goodness and which could defeat all other mystic power. 23. The demon then unleashed hundreds of mystic weapons belonging to the Guyakas, Gandharvas, Pishachas, Uragas, and Rakshasas. But Lord Karshni, Pradyumna, struck them all down. 24. Drawing his sharp-edged sword, Pradyumna forcefully cut off Shambhara's head, complete with red mustache, helmet, and earrings. 25. As the residents of the higher planets showered Pradyumna with flowers and chanted his praises, his wife appeared in the sky and transported him through the heavens back to the city of Dwarka. 26. O king, Lord Pradyumna and his wife resembled a cloud accompanied by lightning as they descended from the sky into the inner quarters of Krishna's most excellent palace, which were crowded with lovely women. 27 and 28. The women of the palace thought that he was Lord Krishna when they saw his dark blue complexion, the color of a rain cloud, his yellow silk garments, his long arms and red-tinged eyes, his charming lotus face adorned with a pleasing smile, his fine ornaments, and his thick, curly blue hair. Thus the women became bashful and hid themselves here and there. Text 29. Gradually, from these slight differences between his appearance and Krishna's, the ladies realized that he was not the Lord. Delighted and astonished, they approached Pradyumna and his consort, who was a jewel among women. 30. Seeing Pradyumna, sweet-voiced, dark-eyed Rukmini remembered her lost son, and her breasts became moist out of affection. 31. Srimati Rukmini Devi said, "Who is this lotus-eyed jewel among men? What man's son is he? And what woman carried her in her womb, carried him in her womb? And who is this woman he has taken as his wife?" 32. If my lost son, who was kidnapped from the maternity room, were still alive somewhere, he would be of the same age and appearance as this young man. Text 33. But how is it that this young man so much resembles my own Lord Krishna, the wielder of Shanga, in his bodily form, in his limbs, in his gait, and the tone of his voice, and in his smiling glance? 34. Yes, he must be the same child I bore in my womb, since I feel great affection for him, and my left arm is quivering. 35. As Queen Rukmini conjectured in this way, Lord Krishna, the son of Devaki, arrived on the scene with Vasudeva and Devaki. 36. Although Lord Janardhan knew perfectly well what had transpired, he remained silent. The sage Narada, however, explained everything, beginning with Shambhara's kidnapping of the child. 37. When the women of Lord Krishna's palace heard this most amazing account, they joyfully greeted Pradyumna, who had been lost for many years, but who had now returned as if from the dead. 38. Devaki, Vasudeva, Krishna, Balaram, and all the women of the palace, especially Queen Rukmini, embraced the young couple and rejoiced. 39. Hearing that lost Pradyumna had come home, the residents of Dwarka declared, Providence has allowed this child to return as if from death. 40. It is not astonishing that the palace women, who should have felt maternal affection for Pradyumna, privately felt ecstatic attraction for him as if he were their own lord. After all, the son exactly resembled his father. Indeed, Pradyumna was a perfect reflection of the beauty of Lord Krishna, the shelter of the goddess of fortune, and appeared before their eyes as Cupid himself. Since even those on the level of his mother felt conjugal attraction for him, then what to speak of how other women felt when they saw him? Purport. As Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti explains, whenever the palace women saw Sri Pradyumna, they immediately remembered their Lord, Sri Krishna. Srila Prabhupada comments as follows: in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Shukadeva Goswami had explained that in the beginning, all the ladies of the palace, who were all mothers and stepmothers of Pradyumna, mistook him to be Krishna and were all bashful, infected by the desire for conjugal love. The explanation is that Pradyumna's personal appearance was exactly like Krishna's, and he was factually Cupid himself. There was no cause for astonishment, therefore, when the mothers of Pradyumna and other women mistook him in that way. It is clear from the statement that Pradyumna's bodily characteristics were so similar to Krishna's that he was mistaken for Krishna even by his mother. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 10th canto, 55th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled The History of Pradyumna. Jai Pradyumna-ji, Jai Mayavati, Jai Rukmini, Jai Krishna, and all the other residents of Dwarka. Another act of the ongoing saga of the universe has been completed, and it is only 6:49. We're going to go on, unless there's any objection. No objection? Okay. He's still bewildered with the airdrop. He's still airdropping, We're trying to airdrop, this sound vibration in his ear. Okay. Oh, this is one of my favorite chapters. Chapter 56, the Syamantaka Jewel. This chapter, is my voice okay? Can you understand it? It's not like too weird? From this side it sounds weird. Okay. This chapter describes how Lord Krishna recovered the Syamantaka jewel to allay false accusations against him and married the daughters of Jambavan and Satyajit. By enacting the pastime involving the Syamantaka jewel, the Lord demonstrated the futility of material wealth. When Shukadev Goswami mentioned that King Satyajit offended Lord Krishna on account of the Syamantaka jewel, King Parikshit became curious to hear the details of this incident. Thus Shukadev Goswami narrated the story. King Satyajit received the Syamantaka jewel by the grace of his best well-wisher, the sun god, Surya. After fastening the gem to a chain, which he then hung around his neck, Satyajit traveled to Dwarka. The residents, thinking he was the sun god himself, went to Krishna and told him that Lord Surya had come to take his audience. But Krishna replied that the man who had come was not Surya, but King Satyajit, who looked extremely effulgent because he was wearing the Syamantaka jewel. In Dwarka, Satyajit installed the precious stone on a special altar in his home. Every day, the gem produced a large quantity of gold, and it had the additional power of assuring that wherever it was properly worshipped, no calamity could occur. On one occasion, Lord Sri Krishna requested Satyajit to give the gem to the king of the Yadus, Ugrasena. But Satyajit refused, obsessed as he was with greed. Shortly thereafter, Satyajit's brother Prasena left the city to hunt on horseback, wearing the Syamantaka jewel on his neck. On the road, a lion killed Prasena and took the jewel away to a mountain cave, where the king of the bears, Jambavan, happened to be living. Jambavan killed the lion and gave the jewel to his son to play with. Is there some problem?
No, it was frozen here, but it's fine.
Okay. When King Satyajit's brother did not return, the king presumed that Sri Krishna had killed him for the Syamantaka jewel. Even Krishna has to have rumors about him, right? Lord Krishna heard about this rumor circulating among the general populace, and to clear his name, he went with some of the citizens to find Prasena. Following his path, they eventually found his body and that of his horse lying on the road. Further on, they found the body of the lion Jambavan had killed. Lord Krishna told the citizens to remain outside the cave while he went in to investigate. The Lord entered Jambavan's cave and saw the Syamantaka Jewel lying next to a child. But when Krishna tried to take the jewel, the child's nurse cried out in alarm, bringing Jambavan quickly to the scene. Jambavan considered Krishna an ordinary man and began fighting with him. For 28 days, continuously, the two fought until finally Jambavan grew weak from the Lord's blows. Now, understanding that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Jambavan began to praise him. The Lord touched Jambavan with his lotus hand, dispelling his fear, and then explained everything about the jewel. With great devotion, Jambavan gladly presented the Syamantaka Jewel to the Lord, together with his unmarried daughter, Jambavati. Meanwhile, the Lord Krishna's companions, having waited 12 days for Krishna to come out of the cave, returned to Dwarka despondent. All of Krishna's friends and family members became extremely sorrowful and began regularly worshipping Lord Durga to assure the Lord's safe return. Even as they performed this worship, Lord Krishna entered the city in the company of his new wife. He summoned Satyajit to the royal assembly, and after recounting to him the entire story of the Syamantaka Jewel's recovery, gave the jewel back to him. Satyajit accepted the jewel, but with great shame and remorse. He went back to his home, and there he decided to offer Lord Krishna not only the jewel, but also his daughter, so as to atone for the offense he had committed against the Lord's lotus feet. Sri Krishna accepted the hand of Satyajit's daughter, Satyabhama, who was endowed with all divine qualities. But the jewel, he refused, returning it to King Satyajit. Now we have to make a profound decision. This is a pretty long chapter. Should we read the chapter? I don't want to stop halfway through this chapter. I'm willing to read the whole thing. I need to take a test the water around here. See what you think. What do you think? That's it. Text 1. Shukadeva Goswami said, having offended Lord Krishna, Satyajit tried his best, as best he could, to atone by presenting him with his daughter and the Syamantaka Jewel. Are we doing the right thing? Yes, we are. Yeah. Text 2. Maharaj Parikshit inquired, O Brahmana, what did King Satyajit do to offend Lord Krishna? Where did he get the Syamantaka Jewel? And why did he give his daughter to the Supreme Lord? Text 3. Shukadeva Goswami said, Surya, the sun god, felt great affection for his devotee Satyajit. Acting as his greatest friend, the demigod gave him the jewel called Syamantaka as a token of his satisfaction. Text 4. Wearing the jewel on his neck, Satyajit entered Dwarka. He shone as brightly as the sun itself, O king, and thus he went unrecognized because of the jewel's effulgence. 5. As the people looked at Satyajit from a distance, his brilliance blinded them. They presumed he was the sun god Surya and went to tell Lord Krishna, who was at that time playing at dice. Text 6. The residents of Dwarka said, obeisances unto you, O Narayana, O holder of the conch, disc and club, O lotus-eyed Damodar, O Govinda, O descendant of Yadu. Lord Sabita has come to see you, O Lord of the universe. He is blinding everyone's eyes with his intensely effulgent rays. 8. The most exalted demigods in the 3 worlds are certainly anxious to seek you out, O Lord, now that you have hidden yourself among the Yadu dynasty. Thus the unborn sun god has come to see you here. Text 9. Shukadeva Goswami continued, hearing these innocent words, the lotus-eyed Lord smiled broadly and said, this is not the sun god, Ravi, but rather Satrajit, who is glowing because of his jewel. Text 10. King Satrajit entered his opulent home, festively executing auspicious rituals. He had qualified brahmanas install the Syamantaka Jewel in the house's temple room. Text 11. Each day, the gem would produce 8 baras of gold, my dear Prabhu, and the place in which it was kept and properly worshipped would be free from calamities such as famine or untimely death, and also of evils like snake bites, mental and physical disorders, and the presence of deceitful persons. Purport. Srila Sridhar Swami gives the following shastric evidence concerning the bara. Chaturbir, Brihid Bir, Gunjam, Gunja Panchapanam Panan, Ashtau Dharanamastau Cha, Karsham, Tongues, Chaturdak Palam, Tulam Palashatam Prahur, Bharat Syad Vingshatistulaha. 4 rice grains are called 1 gunja, 5 gunjas, 1 pana, 8 panas, 1 karsha, 4 karshas, 1 pala, and 100 palas, 1 tula. 20 tulas make up 1 bara. Since there are about 3,700 grains of rice in an ounce, the Syamantaka Jewel was producing approximately 170 pounds of gold every day. Handy thing to have around the house. Text 12. On one occasion, Lord Krishna requested Satrajit to give the jewel to the Yadu king, Ugrasena. But Satrajit was so greedy that he refused. He gave no thought to the seriousness of the offense he committed by denying the Lord's request. 13. Once, Satrajit's brother, Prasena, having hung the brilliant jewel about his neck, mounted a horse and went hunting in the forest. Purport. The inauspicious result of Satrajit's refusal of Lord Krishna's request is about to manifest. Text 14. A lion killed Prasena and his horse and took the jewel. But when the lion entered a mountain cave, he was killed by Jambavan, who wanted the jewel. 15. Within the cave, Jambavan let his young son have the Syamantaka jewel as a toy to play with. Meanwhile, Satrajit, not seeing his brother return, became deeply troubled. He said, Krishna probably killed my brother, who went to the forest wearing the jewel on his neck. The general populace heard this accusation and began whispering it in one another's ears. They didn't even have the internet. If they had the internet, it would have been worse. When Lord Krishna heard this rumor, he wanted to remove the stain on his reputation. So he took some of Dwarka's citizens with him and set out to retrace Prasena's path. Text 18. In the forest, they found Prasena and his horse, both killed by the lion. Further on, they found the lion dead on a mountainside, slain by Riksha, Jambavan. The Lord stationed his subjects outside the terrifying, pitch-dark cave of the king of the bears, and then he entered all alone. You know, our Acharya's comment that Jambavan killed the lion just by breaking his neck with his bare hands. That's how powerful he was. Text 20. There Lord Krishna saw that the most precious of jewels had been made into a child's plaything. Determined to take it away, he approached the child. The child's nurse cried out in fear upon seeing that extraordinary person standing before them. Jambavan, strongest of the strong, heard her cries and angrily ran toward the Lord. Unaware of his true position and thinking him an ordinary man, Jambavan angrily began fighting with the Supreme Lord, his master. Purport. The words Purusham Prakritam Matva, thinking him a mundane person, are very significant. So-called Vedic scholars, including most Western ones, enjoy translating the word Purusham as man, even when the word refers to Lord Krishna. And thus their unauthorized translations of Vedic literature are tainted by their materialistic conceptions of the Godhead. However, here it is clearly stated that it was because Jambavan misunderstood the Lord's position that he considered him Prakrita Purusha, a mundane person. In other words, the Lord is actually Purushottama, the ultimate transcendental person. Text 23. The two fought furiously in single combat, each determined to win, contending against each other with various weapons and then with stones, tree trunks, and finally their bare arms. They struggled like two hawks battling over a piece of flesh. Text 24. The fight went on without rest for 28 days. The two opponents striking each other with their fists, which fell like the cracking blows of lightning. Purport. His bulging muscles pummeled by the blows of Lord Krishna's fists, his strength faltering and his limbs perspiring, Jambavan, greatly astonished, finally spoke to the Lord. 26. Jambavan said, I know now that you are the life air and the sensory, mental, and bodily strength of all living beings. You are Lord Vishnu, the original person, the supreme, all-powerful controller. You are the ultimate creator of all creators of the universe, and of everything created, you are the underlying substance. You are the subduer of all subduers, the supreme Lord and supreme soul of all souls. Purport. As Lord Kapila states in the Srimad-Bhagavatam 3:25-42, Mrityus Chatriti Mad Bhayat, death himself moves about out of fear of me. 28. You are he who impelled the ocean to give way when his sidelong glances, slightly manifesting his anger, disturbed the crocodiles and timangila fish within the watery depths. You are he who built a great bridge to establish his fame, who burned down the city of Lanka, and whose arrows severed the heads of Ravana, which then fell to the ground. Shukadeva Goswami continued, O king, Lord Krishna then addressed the king of the bears, who had understood the truth. The lotus-eyed personality of Godhead, the son of Devaki, touched Jambavan with his hand, which bestows all blessings, and spoke to his devotee with sublime compassion, his grave voice deeply resounding like a cloud. Text 31. Lord Krishna said, "It is for this jewel, O Lord of the bears, that we have come to your cave. I intend to use the jewel to disprove the false accusations against me." 32. Thus addressed, Jambavan happily honored Lord Krishna by offering him his maiden daughter, Jambavati, together with the jewel. Text 33. After Lord Shauri had entered the cave, the people of Dwarka, who had accompanied him, had waited 12 days without seeing him come out again. Finally, they had given up and returned to their city in great sorrow. 34. When Devaki, Rukmini Devi, Vasudeva, and the Lord's other relatives and friends heard that he had not come out of the cave, they all lamented. 35. Cursing Satyajit, the sorrowful residents of Dwarka, approached the Durga deity named Chandrabhaga and prayed to her for Krishna's return. 36. When the citizens had finished worshipping the demigoddess, she spoke to them in response, promising to grant their request. Just then, Lord Krishna, who had achieved his purpose, appeared before them in the company of his new wife, filling them with joy. 37. Seeing Lord Rishikesha return as if from death, accompanied by his new wife and wearing the Syamantaka Jewel on his neck, all the people were roused to jubilation. Purport. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti, Jambavan had placed a jewel on Lord Krishna's neck when he had presented his daughter in marriage. Such tasty details that the Acharyas give us, isn't it? Amazing. Text 38. Lord Krishna summoned Satyajit to the royal assembly. There, in the presence of King Ugrasena, Krishna announced the recovery of the jewel and then formally presented it to Satyajit. 39. Hanging his head in great shame, Satyajit took the gem and returned home, all the while feeling remorse for his sinful behavior. 40 to 42. Pondering over his grievous offense and worried about the possibility of conflict with the Lord's mighty devotees, King Satyajit thought, how can I cleanse myself of my contamination? And how may Lord Achyuta become satisfied with me? What can I do to regain my good fortune and avoid being cursed by the populace for being so short-sighted, miserly, foolish, and avaricious? I shall give my daughter, the jewel of all women, to the Lord, together with the Syamantaka Jewel. That indeed is the only proper way to pacify him. Text 43. Having thus intelligently made up his mind, King Satyajit personally arranged to present Lord Krishna with his fair daughter and the Syamantaka Jewel. 44. The Lord married Satyabhama in proper religious fashion. Possessed of excellent behavior along with beauty, broad-mindedness, and all other good qualities, she had been sought by many men. Purport. Srila Sridhar Swami explains that men such as Kritavarma had sought the hand of Satyabhama. 45. the Supreme Personality of Godhead told Satyajit, "We do not care to take this jewel back, O king. You are the sun god's devotee, so let it stay in your possession. Thus, we will enjoy its benefits." Purport. Satyajit should have worshipped Lord Krishna, the Supreme God. Thus, there is certainly a touch of irony in Lord Krishna's saying, "After all, you are a devotee of the sun god." Furthermore, Krishna had already acquired Satyajit's greatest treasure, the pure and beautiful Satyabhama. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 10th canto, 56th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled the Syamantaka Jewel. Jambavan ki jai, Jambavati ki jai, Satyabhama ki jai, Jai Lord Krishna ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So that turned out all right. That's about, did that whole thing in about almost an hour. Almost exactly an hour. In Kartik this year, in, I think it was 28 days, it was less than 30 days, we read the whole Krishna book, and the whole 8th canto, and the whole 9th canto. It was a yajna, 5 hours a day minimum. It's amazing, isn't it? If you just keep reading, and I don't read so slow, I'm reading at a very relatively slow pace, what you can cover if you just keep reading, you know? And then you think about it, if you keep doing this for 2 or 3 years, I mean, now, this is chapter 56 we just finished, and His Holiness, His Wholesomeness, Radharaman Prabhu informed me that we started right here in this place. When? 2 years ago?
Coming up to 2 years ago, it was something like approximately March of 2018.
So it was approximately around March 2018 we started, right here. And we're going to finish while we're here this time. The whole Bhagavatam, plus the Gita in between. Because we started on chapter 60. We're still not sure exactly which.
It's about 60.
You know, we started on about 60. And then we finished, then I went to America and we kept reading and recording and did the rest of the 10th canto, then the 11th canto and the 12th canto, and then we did the Gita. But this time I'm in Houston, and then we started the Bhagavatam again, right? And now here we are, back to where we started from. That means we'll have, in a few days, before I leave here, for sure, a product which is the whole Bhagavatam, plus, you know, reflections and discussions and questions and answers. It's unique. There's nothing like it in the movement. There's more than 1 or 2 or 3 devotees that are saying that we figure out how to get this out to more devotees and, you know, promote it and all of that.
There was also 2 months where you weren't reading because you were reading the Vaisashika Guru and Govardhan.
Yeah.
So the Bhagavatam has been, the whole Bhagavatam like that would have been completed in less than 18 months.
Yeah, because there were 2 months, because during that time we took 2 months off with Vaisheshika Prabhu reading for Kartik. Anyway, all the things that we hear about in the Bhagavatam, you know, how when something wonderful is happening, time goes like this, and when there's separation, time seems to slow down to, you know, a halt, you know. It's really true. It's really true. Okay, It's time for our open mic session, and I'm looking. You guys are the veterans, so please feel free. The ball is in your court, as they say. Shamagori, I thought you'd never ask.
I'm just trying to understand what's happening with Pradyumna, because there was Kamadeva and Rati, like husband and wife, eternally, I guess. And then his body gets burned up, and then he merges back with Pradyumna.
Yes.
And then he takes birth, and then he gets together with his wife again.
Yes.
So that means that the wife is no longer just have Kamadeva, he actually has the Supreme Lord as her husband.
Yes.
Wasn't a bad bargain then.
Yes, pretty good bargain. Pretty good bargain.
Okay. And the other question was that why did Satyajit turn up in Mathura? Do we know that?
Why did Satyajit turn up in Mathura? No, it's in Dwarka.
Oh, Dwarka, yes.
Yeah. I haven't read anywhere directly, but I'm presuming that because Dwarka became very famous and very special, and because Lord Krishna was there, and he was looking for fame.
Oh, okay.
You see, because he was, he had the Syamantaka Jewel now, and he was very wealthy and very influential and very popular. Wherever that jewel went, everything got auspicious, and therefore, I think he wanted to be impressive in the most impressive place. Something like that. This is my presumption. But it's something like that. I mean, there's another story that Rupa Goswami tells in Lalita Madhava, which has a lot to do with this, pastime. And there it's described that when Krishna left to go to Mathura, after some time, the principal gopis, not all the gopis, but the principal gopis, who had been king's daughters before, they returned to their father's places. And some of them. Radharani herself drowned in the Yamuna. But she obviously didn't die, but she just was transferred to the sun planet, where he kind of was adopted by the sun god. And then, when Satyajit worshipped the sun god, because this is all precious pastimes, you can't just analyze it pragmatically and say this was for this reason and that was for that reason. That's all the play of Krishna's Leela, knowing what was going to happen. And, because Radharani never leaves, Vrindavan either, you can definitely say it's an expansion, not Radharani, the proper, not the original Radharani. But then he gives Satyabhama and the jewel to Satyajit because of the worship that Satyajit was doing. Because sometimes the demigods, they're easily pleased sometimes, and they'll give far out benedictions. So that's how it happened. And Satyabhama, therefore, is an incarnation of Radharani, or is an expansion of Radharani. And so that's how she got back with Krishna, Vasudeva Krishna.
Okay.
The fascinating story. It's so wonderful how Narada Muni just shows up every time there needs to be a reporting of what's going on. Everybody can understand what's happening. It's always Narada Muni that shows up and tells everybody what's actually happening.
The official correspondent.
What?
Official correspondent.
Yeah. You know, the Vaikuntha correspondent, the Vaikuntha reporter, journalist. Yes, Priyakund.
Maharaj, the point in the pastime where Satyajit begins to spread the rumours and that Krishna actually stole the jewel, and then he says the people were whispering amongst themselves.
Yes.
So it reminded me of Ram Leela.
Yes. I thought the same thing.
And in that instance, Ram didn't do anything and just accepted how things would unfold and banished Sita. Where in this pastime, Krishna goes to great pains to prove that the gossip wasn't correct. So could you explain the difference between Lord Ram and Lord Krishna and why the pastimes unfolded differently in those circumstances?
Well, you know, there's many examples of speeches that Krishna makes in which he explains that he's different in the sense that he doesn't have a varna, he doesn't have an ashram, he starts out as a cowherd boy, and then he's a prince, then he's a king, and you know, so he's not so easy. His role is not easy to discern. But Ramachandra came, you know, and specifically to demonstrate what is the perfect ruler, the perfect king, Dharma, the perfect person for Dharma. So he only had one wife, Sita. He didn't have many wives, even though Kshatriyas were allowed to. So he was showing, you know, a different level of Dharma in human culture, in a spiritual human culture, whereas Krishna was just showing all the varieties of the absolute truths, energies and personality and traits. Like he had 16,000 queens, and he had 6 billion gopi girlfriends, and you know, he's not so easy to understand. You know, that's why so many people even criticize him as being adharmic, because he did all these things, and he steals butter and everybody worships him, and he runs away from the battlefield and everybody worships him for that, because he's just everything, and I don't know how else to put it. I haven't heard any, in one place a systematic analysis of that, but I'm just putting together different things that I've heard, to try to kind of answer the question, again, presuming, as I answered Shamagori's question, kind of presuming that it's like this. Krishna didn't come just to, act like the perfect king and show, what the, There are some commentators that say that one of the lessons that Lord Ramachandra meant to teach was that when you go traveling, don't take your wife with you, especially in the forest, because it's liable to, trouble's liable to brew, especially if she's beautiful. It's why, to me, the difference is why Krishna's pastimes are so incredibly interesting and all the different rasas, humorous and chivalrous and horrific, and he's everything. He's the rasa vaisa. He's the source of all rasas and source of everything. Whereas Lord Ramachandra comes to play a certain role in human society. Even though Lord Krishna in general plays the role as Nara, what is the name is? Almost human, human-like. Can't remember the name. There's a Sanskrit name that means human-like, that Krishna was a human-like. But Ramachandra was just, that's his one role, to be the king, to be the perfect, to show what the perfect Ramrajya, the perfect kingdom is underneath, the perfect king's role. Does that answer the question at all?
Yes, thank you so much.
Anyway, that's all I...
Can you imagine Krishna was really looking forward to fighting Jambavan back then?
Yeah. And just a detail of that, Jambavan was considered to be the most powerful being on the earth at that time, the strongest. But interesting, because he fought with other big guys, big, powerful. Vidvida was also, but they were demons, and Jambavan was a great devotee. So see how the difference, how he responded to his great devotee when he was fighting him, and how he revealed himself in a way that Jambavan could get it, Another interesting point about that is that Jambavan is also, sometimes he's called king of the bears, sometimes he's called king of the monkey, It's got different, but it's in Kim Purusha, which is a planet where human-like beings live that aren't completely human, but they have human forms and characteristics mixed with other, forms. I haven't heard anything directly whether Jambavan is from that place. Yeah, it must be, because he was there when Ramachandra fought Ravana. Yes. So he was in all those so-called monkeys that came, they came from Kimpurusha Loka. And they were not ordinary, they all had mystic powers, and, Hanuman could, expound beautiful poetry, and, was a great scholar, as well as being, a humble servant of Lord Ramachandra, eternal servant of Lord Ramachandra. Yeah, it's just Krishna's pastimes are incredible. How it all fits together, and how the points that it's making, and the lessons and the morals, and yeah, it's amazing. We're really lucky to have found Krishna.
Something from Rati Manjari.
Rati Manjari's got something to say. Haribo Rati, we're back in your time zone almost. You don't have to stay up in all hours.
She says, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. Great to see you back at Wisteria College. I have a question. Why didn't Satyajit give the Syamantaka Jewel back to Lord Krishna right away?
Because he was attached to the opulence and the fame. If you had a jewel that was producing, what was it, 170 pounds of gold every day, you'd be pretty attached to it also. And also, it was partly Krishna's will, because, he didn't want, anyway, Satyajit was his devotee, and yeah. And Satyajit was just attached to the jewel. So Krishna's trying to, didn't want to part with, give everything, Satyabhama and the jewel. That may have disturbed him a lot, more maybe. There is a truth that when you are worshiping Krishna, or even in ordinary life, if you love somebody, then you want to give them something that's dear to you or is dear to them, So that was part of the plot. It was part of the plot. You know, if you would have given this jewel right back to Krishna, then, you know, all these other intrigues might not have happened. And we'll see in the next chapter, there are all kind of, you know, intrigues that happen, and then he had to be killed. You know, he had to go through that horrific, you know, pastime.
And then Jambavan just gives the jewel to his child to play with.
Yeah. Yeah, Jambavan gave the toy, used it as a toy for his kid.
Manjari also had a reflection.
Hmm.
You read how the inhabitants of Dwarka were afraid to follow Krishna into the cave, and even when he did not come back, they didn't go in to see about him, but returned to the city. I was remembering how the cowherd boys walked laughingly into the mouth of Aghasura because they were confident that Krishna would protect them. It's quite a contrast.
Well, it means that the mood, the rasa, in Dwarka is mixed with reverence, awe and reverence. The love is not as, I don't want to say not as pure, because it's completely pure, but in the spiritual world there's pure, purer, and purest. You know, Dwarka, Mathura, and Vrindavan. The love is pure, or perfect, more perfect, and most perfect. You know, so yeah, the residents they have a different mood. They don't have as much capacity. Their capacity is different, or their mood is different. I mean, Krishna protects them, and you transferred them all to Dwarka just overnight by his mystic power, and protected them by killing a whole army just by himself. So it's not that they weren't, you know, attached to him or seeing what one of them. As a matter of fact, there was the prayer. There was a prayer in which who was speaking? When they were talking to Lord Krishna, they were talking about how he's the supreme, he's the source of everything, maintainer of the universe, all these things. That was one of the, who was that gave the prayer? Do you remember? Somebody, I don't remember, but anyway, it was one of the Dwarkavasis. So that's how they saw him, you know. Yeah.
It's quite funny.
Yeah. I mean, that part of it's similar, because even in Braj they don't worship Krishna as God. But there in Dwarka, they know he's God, or at least they have more of a perception that he is, but they just have a different mood. It's kind of like mixed. Sometimes they see him two-handed, and sometimes they see him four-handed. They don't see him all the time as four-handed. They don't see him all the time as two-handed. They see him sometimes as two-handed and sometimes as four-handed. Yeah, I mean, the gopis prayed to Katyayani so Krishna would be their husband. So they're worshipping, you know, the demigods, but not in the same way that materialists worship demigods.
Interestingly, Krishna even instructed Arjuna to worship Durga Devi before the battle of Kurukshetra.
Start again. Shamagoy has something to say.
So Krishna instructed Arjuna also to worship Durga Devi before the battle of Kurukshetra.
Oh.
So even Krishna himself says to his devotees, worship this demigod. I would assume that that's because of the culture that he wants to maintain.
Yeah. Devam Devi of Tam, Devam Devi of Taya, te diva bhavayantuva parasparam bhavayanta shreya param abhabshata. That's also in the Gita. That if by the cooperation of the demigods and human beings and sacrifice, then everything stays nice. Like we were talking about this about today, how there's such horrific, not just weather problems, but conflicts between human beings and people killing each other, not like in battle for some purpose, but just for no reason at all, and family members and some hiker on the trail, or it's just gone stark raving mad, and all the reactions that are going to happen as a result of that it's going to go on. You can't stop it. Even our movement will slow it down, and it can actually, for some time, it can become more God conscious. But at the same time, Prabhupada said, the other force, the dark force, will also increase. Which will make some people very, very favorable and some people very, very unfavorable. And at some point in the future, there may be a conflict between the devotees and the demons. It's just a pattern. And then once that mercy of Lord Chaitanya is, passed, and Lord Krishna's desires that the Kali Yuga, progress, which is part of what is needed, to discipline the humans, in Kali Yuga. They get so degraded, they only listen to it, and that's a stick. They can't listen anymore to reason or philosophy or even bribery or, they just and so Kalki comes and just, finishes them all with the sword. And it's even in the Bible, in the Revelations, the apocalypse is described as riding a white horse, carrying a double-edged sword. It's the same person. It doesn't say specifically what he does, in Revelations. But he is the, what's the word? The reconciler, the, supreme, chastiser. And then everybody goes back to God. And our acharyas describe that there's some devotees left. There's still some pure devotees left, very few. And when everybody else is wiped out, then the planet is left alone, without all this, abuse and these things. And then it gradually comes back to normal. It's like you cut yourself or break something, you just leave it, or get treatment, and then it heals. So the whole earth is like that. It will heal if we just leave it alone. Yep. That's why we're the supreme. The Krishna consciousness movement is the supreme healing force on all levels, even ecologically. All we can do is try to behave ourselves properly, and as a unit or a group of a yatra, I guess you could say. I'm hoping that a yatra will develop in this area of the country, of the world, so that we can show, these examples, how we're supposed to behave and live on the land and become absorbed in loving Krishna. The world will become so happy. Hare Krishna. Never was there a time when it was more needed, huh? You got something? Anything? But you have to come over and take the microphone.
The thing is that I do have a thought that I haven't figured out how to formulate it. So.
Well, you'll figure it out. You're smart. Look, Art, we've got such a long cable now. We can go all the way to you from there. There you go.
Yeah, I don't know if I can get into the whole thought, but I just thought it was interesting how there's a, how to say it, there's a path of righteousness and there's a path of unrighteousness, and King Satyajit went over the line the wrong way at a certain point in the pastime, and then everything became inauspicious for him.
Yes.
But did it actually become auspicious again, or was it never really quite the same?
I mean, with him, you mean? Well, we'll read. It went south. It got even worse. Because he did offend Krishna in a very personal way, like a Krura. He took Krishna from Mathura. It seemed, even Krishna never leaves Vrindavan, but for his Nara Leela or his Prakat Leela, his manifest pastimes, it seems like he leaves. He goes to Mathura, and the gopis cursed Krura. And therefore Krura had to also get involved in that whole thing, He was involved in the conspiracy. Huh?
One thing that Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, which I really
Wait. We have to wait for them.
What Krishna says about this in the Bhagavad Gita, what I really like, when he says that, and how does he say that? In victory, I am morality,
Yes.
or something like that. And sort of it says that unless you're moral, then you can't really be victorious.
Let's get this exactly.
Yeah, that would be good.
There's two places. One is the very end, wherever Arjuna and Krishna are present. There's victory and morality, and all auspiciousness. But this is in the 10th chapter, where he says, this is why we need to learn these books. I am victory, I am adventure, and I am the strength of the strong. That's another thing, morality. I seem to remember the word morality.
I think it's 1038, Manoj.
1038? And I definitely remember morality.
Yes, that's the one.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Oh, I started back from 37. Among all means of lawlessness, I am punishment, and of those who seek victory, I am morality. Yes. Of secret things I am silence, and of the wise I am wisdom. So these are vibhutis of Krishna. They're not personal forms of Krishna, but they're the perfection or the how do I say it? The caricature of vibhutis, power. Like sharks are the most powerful, dangerous, and feared among aquatics. So he says of, fish, I am shark, or I'm a lion. He says, and like that. These are vibhutis of Krishna.
So basically, if we seek victory through morality, then we are more powerful than if we are trying to seek victory in a different way. Because
Yes,
we
the
are
victory.
kind
The victory becomes, first of all, becomes more permanent.
of,
If we do through morality, it's more real, and it delivers good qualities. The whatever the gain is that you get by victory, those things become auspicious if they're done through morality, through moral. So therefore, these I mean, with Akrura it's different. It's a different case of Akrura, but with Satyajit and Kritavarma, and Akrura was also involved, but he didn't get so, entangled. He didn't lose. Satyajit got killed in an inauspicious way. Because of that, it wasn't moral. He should have given the jewel to Krishna, and it would have been completely moral. So there was some greed in him still. And when greed is there, no matter, even in Krishna's pastimes, if you're greedy, then you have to pay the price.
plus there was some pride as well, it seems like.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Why else would he come in wearing the jewel and show off,
Just sticking out.
Yeah, I'm sure he wasn't saying to people, no, I'm not the sun god.
It mentioned that it called the sun god as unborn. I'm just wondering why.
Surya Narayan.
Oh, okay.
Surya Narayan, he's eternal.
Right.
He's not born by material karma in the same way.
So, Raj, can I just ask just a question about the previous point.
What should King Satyajit have done? Because I seem to remember in the 5th canto when Maharaj Bharat became attached to a deer, Prabhupada was saying that his mistake was that he didn't consult with the learned spiritual master when he became attached to a deer. But unless I wasn't hearing attentively enough, and it wasn't clear to me in this pastime what King Satyajit should have done to avoid the sort of...
Well, Bharat Maharaj was a little different because he attained a very high level of almost close to love of God. But he wasn't in the Lord's pastimes as these personalities were, directly in the Lord's pastimes. So that's one difference. And the other difference is that, he didn't consult, Bharat Maharaj didn't have anybody to consult. But because he took that path, of going to the forest, by himself, and didn't have someone to connect with and ask, and then so that's one of the reasons why he, had to go through what he went through. But in the case of Satyajit, it's different because he was directly in Krishna's pastimes, first of all. So that's playing into all of everything. Krishna's will, how he deals with everyone, and how he benedicts everyone, and how he punishes everyone, has to do with, the pastimes, the eternal pastimes of Krishna. So, he should have given the jewel to Krishna. But he decided to give to Krishna the jewel, along with Satyabhama, and then Krishna gave it back to him. I mean, he probably should have given the jewel as soon as he came into Dwarka. He should have given the jewel to Ugrasena, and then Krishna asked him to give it to Ugrasena, and he said no. So that's a dharmic thing in the, you know, everything belongs to the king, so you give to the king. Just ask Trump. Anyway, that's a joke. He thinks everything belongs to him. But if the king is actually a representative of God, then everything does belong to him. You know, that there's that one pastime where, who was it? It was one of the incarnations of Krishna that gives everything to the Brahmanas. When he appeared, was it Prithu?
Yeah, that's right.
Prithu? He gave everything to the Brahmanas, and then the Brahmanas gave everything back to him, because there was that mutual, you know, respect and mutual love between the Brahmanas and the saintly king. So I think it's like you like Shamagori was saying, it's pride. It's pride and greed and attachment. It all comes from pride, actually. It all flows from pride. That's why Krishna says in the Gita, you know, adambitvam amanditvam. That's humility and pridelessness. You know, that's knowledge. And Prabhupada very carefully explains how those items, and there's 18 of them, I think, about 18 items, and those comprise what is knowledge. And sometimes devotees make the mistake of thinking that these are parts of the material nature and how to act piously within the material nature, but it isn't. These are the means for overcoming the material nature completely and living in knowledge and going back to Godhead. So in that sense also, morality and cleanliness and truthfulness and all those qualities, humility and pridelessness and, you know, cleanliness and all those things, they're transcendental. They're knowledge that, you know, anyway. I'm thinking that we should orient ourselves and the people that we teach in and emphasize those things. You know, because if we develop those qualities, if we cultivate those qualities, then, you know, everything auspicious in our life and the lives of those around us in the world will expand. And that's the real lesson. And then we can actually give everything to Krishna. Sarvadharman Prityaja. So that knowledge of how we become capable of giving everything to Krishna is in that list of, you know, in that list and in the list of, you know, in the beginning of the 16th chapter, the divine qualities, you know, that Krishna tells Arjuna, don't worry, you were born with a divine quality, so don't worry, you're going to be successful, you know. And at the end, you know, Sanjaya said, wherever there's Krishna and Arjuna, and there's victory, morality, and all auspiciousness and all of that. So, yeah, the Bhagavad Gita is meant to teach us to cultivate, you know, reform our characters, you know, and reform our characters through that knowledge. It's described in the 13th chapter of the Gita. Unless we actually reform our characters and then see through that consciousness and that quality, then we can't actually, in a sense, we can't claim to be Jnana Chakshus or Shastra Chakshus, seeing through the eyes of Scripture. We may get some information content about what's going on and what's the quality of the goodness and passion and ignorance. We may be able to identify people, oh yeah, he's this and she's that and whatever, but unless we, you know, imbibe those qualities that Krishna describes as knowledge in our own characters, then when we have the combination of the information contact and the consciousness that comes from real knowledge, by developing those qualities, then when we'll see Krishna. We'll see how everything's connected with Krishna, and then automatically we'll know what to do instinctively. You know, what's right and wrong, what's the right to do, we'll automatically do it. And in the spiritual world, that's where everybody is. They know exactly what to do and what not to do intuitively. They don't need gurukulas to train their kids, and stuff like that. Okay, I think I will wrap it up for tonight. We just traveled and a little bit jet-lagged, and Shamagori with her X-ray vision told me that I looked a little tired, which I am. She always sees it right. And we'll let it go for tonight. And thank you very much. These are very intricate and very interesting pastimes, huh? The Syamantaka Jewel and all the... We'll even hear more in the next chapters, how it all played out, what happened to Satyajit, and even some of the associates of Krishna, including Akrura, has to, pay the price for upsetting the gopis as much as he did, Okay, thank you very much, everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow night, same time, UK time, 6 o'clock, right here in the Wisteria College, the place where it all started in terms of our adventure of recording the whole Bhagavatam and all of your wonderful comments and questions and analysis. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night. Hari Krishna.